Hello and welcome to the Peaceful Empowerment Work Show. We are live on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I am your co-host Judy Forder, and I am here with my co-host in peace, Miss.
Kris Burke. Hi, everybody. Hi, Judy.
Hi, everybody. And before we get started, let's do our comment. Kris
Yes,
loves comments.
Kris does love.
We're eventually going to have a segment that just is Kris loves comments. So, if you feel our content is valuable, please help us get it out to the world. Like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Mhm.
I already did the before we get started. And our topic for today is choosing the theme of your next chapter. You know
Yeah.
what? The more that I was seeing it and saying it as we've been prepping, the more it really feels good to me because I have a daughter who's just started college who the thought of life is just completely overwhelming. And
Right.
yes, I have felt that same exact way. So, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? I'm done all this healing and I'm doing all this stuff. What does the rest of your life look like? I have no freaking clue. So
Mhm.
when we started talking about the next chapter, I was like, oh, well, I can do the next chapter. It's not
Yeah.
it's just the next chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a good point. And, sometimes, because the energy's been shifting, we've been talking about this a little bit, but, a lot of the world doesn't look the same to a lot of us as it did, not that many years ago. And so there's been a lot of realizations and a lot of, I guess, realities, some of them harsh, others really sweet if we've been doing our work, right? That have been coming up to the surface to be examined and experienced. And so a lot of us might be feeling actually like we're moving from one part of a book to another. You know how a book will be like part one, chapters 1 through 8, part two, chapters 9 through, 22, whatever. Um, you may be feeling like you're moving into the next chapter that's kind of in sequence that makes sense. And you may, like I can very much relate to this myself, very much feel like, okay, there's a whole set of chapters with a certain theme that were like Kris touching the hot stove until she learned not to do that anymore. And then healing her hand because it got burned so many times into this new chapter of like, okay, I'm mentally, emotionally imbalanced. I'm able to navigate difficult situations and difficult people with ease and grace. And so, what do I build from that, right, on this new foundation? And that to me feels like a whole new section of the book.
Yes, absolutely. It's like we've been talking. We have taken inventory. We're taking what worked from that part of the book and we're going to start something new.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of healing. We know a lot more. And we know that we hardly know anything at all.
Right. Yeah. And if there's a little voice inside of yourself that gets really mad at that, um, you know, welcome to the human condition.
Yep. We know what we know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a
Exactly.
lot we don't.
True. So, thinking about the theme, like the theme, we might suddenly feel like we're back in English composition class and we're like, oh my God, theme, I got to look that up or the plot. Or so let's talk a little bit about what we mean by that. And Cece, it would be helpful to have the little dragon map. Yeah, thanks so much. This will help you to narrow it down, right? And Judy, you want to kind of feeling like you're the one to lead the exploration here.
Well, it's funny because, my interpretation of words I use are often very different than the words you use. I see the dragon and I'm like, zone one. The poverty game is all about fighting your own dragons.
Yes.
You're the one that you don't realize it when you're in the mix, when you're in the mess, but you are the one basically that has your own foot on your throat.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then, then you wake up a little bit and you're like, okay, I'm going to fix this. I got a plan. I got a plan. I'm proud of this plan. I got a freaking plan. Ain't nobody going to knock me down, you know? And
Right.
then we get into zone 2, which is the dog eat dog world.
Right.
You know, it's in order for me to succeed, you have to fail. And um, I'm just looking to save myself and the people that I love.
Yes. And to be clear, in zone 1, you're fighting yourself. And in zone 2, now you've taken on everybody.
Yep. You're taking on the world.
Yeah.
And I got a plan that I'm going to execute and I will win. I will win.
Exactly. Exactly. Or die trying.
They
Yeah.
or die trying. Exactly.
Hmm.
And then you get to zone 3, which is the truth game. And that's where you start to be more curious than competitive. You start to ask questions. You start to, that's where the pause comes in. Because in the pause, you get to look around and be like, this isn't making much sense.
Right.
Why is that?
Do you think taking on the entire world by myself wasn't rational?
Maybe there's a way everybody can win. I don't
Hmm.
know. Let's look into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where you really start to figure out what feels true to you. Okay, this is everything I'm seeing. What about this feels true?
Hmm.
And you pick what feels right to you, and then you start to examine and really dig through your personal beliefs, family beliefs, societal beliefs, conditioning, and all that kind of stuff to figure out and excavate who you are.
Yeah.
And then when we move on to zone 4, it's the freedom game. There's exactly. There is an awful lot of freedom in trusting your truth. There's an awful lot of freedom in trusting the guidance of your heart, your soul, whatever it is you want to call it.
Hmm.
It's trusting that you have all the information that you need when you need it, not a desire to have all of it because you have to have all of it. You have it when you need it, and you live a life guided by that beacon of light, no matter, what I call it, your soul. Living a life powered by your soul, living a
Hmm.
life powered by your intuition, powered by, you know, unlimited, infinite knowledge, or unlimited knowledge, and you're free to do whatever your heart guides you to do. You
Yeah.
live your purpose. You are of service to yourself and humanity, and
Hmm.
the planet, the world, the universe. And you feel and live in that vibration of love, truth, joy, and abundance. Because
Right.
when you're living in your truth and love and joy, abundance comes.
It does. You're a magnet for serendipity, for, people and situations to just come to you. Because your vibration is clear. You're putting your energy into I desire this. I choose this in my life. And you're holding the vibration for somebody who would have that. When we're in conflict with ourselves, we're sending out, I desire this and I can't have it. I desire this and I'm not sure. And so, it's kind of like watching a TV station where there's static, you're getting two at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it shows up, you don't recognize it because it's all mushed up and fuzzy and, there are broken parts in it.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get our minds really clear and our hearts really clear and in alignment, there's one station playing. It's the one we're creating, and we recognize it when it shows up, the people and situations, we're like, yeah, that's mine.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're clear on the inside.
Yeah, and recognizing is a big thing. I mean, that's huge. And I've always said the first step to all of this healing and in the healing journey is to first be aware,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. It's funny because I forget who sent me the TikTok. It was probably Jen or a reel where a woman was like, think about, she for a year, she decided that she would stop saying, how much worse can it get?
Right.
And she switched it to show me how much better it can get. And in a year, she's like, my entire world has changed in a year just because I shifted what I was saying and what I was asking for.
Yes.
And saying, how worse can it get? You're inviting the universe to show you how much worse it can get.
Yes.
So when you
Absolutely.
show me how much better it can get, you're inviting the universe to provide you with experience after experience after experience that shows you how much better it can get.
Yeah. And, to be clear, because I used to hear stories like that, because there are lots of inspirational stories like that out in the world. And I used to hear them earlier in my journey when I didn't have the personal experience of it working. And it used to just make me feel worse about myself. It was like, well, if it's really that easy, then what the hell's wrong with me? Right. That would be, and that's one of those questions we don't want to be asking the universe either. Um, so to be clear, in order for this woman who clearly got inspired and was able to hear her intuition, in order for her to make that kind of commitment to herself, to change the way she was speaking and what she was asking for, she had to have gone through a period of letting go of her, a lot of that shame, the guilt, the grief, the anger. She had to have been willing to see herself as somebody who was deserving of a better experience. And in my experience, that can be easier than for some people, and especially now than it used to be. But it still requires a commitment to w- understanding, why we've been in, for a lot of us, a somewhat self-destructive victim mode. Like
Mhm.
without that understanding, it's very difficult to start making new choices because the old pattern, the old situations, the old people keep showing up and we keep automatically doing the same thing without the awareness of how that's creating the reality that we're not super happy about.
Mhm. Yeah, you have to be to that point where you're ready to open your hands, open your heart, open your mind, and receive.
Yes.
And you know how that's a very nice way of saying you have to be tired of your own bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. You get to that point where, the intellect has had you making list after list, plan after plan, and it's not working. It's still not working. It's still not working, or it works a little bit. It's not enough. And years and years and years and years and years of doing that. Once you're just, I don't know what else to do.
Right.
you know you realize that a lot of times, like I always say, the hardest pill for me to swallow was to realize I was my own worst enemy. And
Yeah.
I say that a lot, but when you look at a situation that brought you to your knees and you realize you were the one that put you there, that's tough.
Yes.
Because my knee-jerk response was to say, no, it was so and so's fault, and so and so, and that's son of a blah, 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 point
Right.
that finger. But it
Yeah.
wasn't until I finally stopped putting the blame on everybody else and looked at myself and asked why.
Yeah.
Why do you do this to yourself? Why do you keep doing this over and
Right.
over and over again? Why?
Right.
And that's when I got curious.
Hmm. That's right. And we start realizing, we learned it by watching people. You
Mm-hmm.
could have, your parents could tell you, I want you to be empowered. I want you to be independent. I want you to, have the life of your dreams and blah, blah, blah. Right. I mean, all the lovely things. I shouldn't blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah that. But if they're, suffering a life or enduring a life or surviving a life that's lost its sparkle, then what we're going to learn is the patterns of someone and the approaches of someone who doesn't have any deep love for their life or themselves, right? So it's impossible to learn in an environment like that how to be different from that.
Yeah. I mean, at least in my world, in my reality, what I've been exposed to is 9 out of the 10 people I have met are living in survival mode.
Right.
And it's just generation after generation after generation,
Right.
and it's not about placing blame on why that has happened. We've talked about this a lot in past shows,
Hmm.
identifying things. It's important to identify it and then discuss with yourself, do you still believe this?
Right. And get out your big no, thank you.
Thank you. And I don't give a rat's ass.
Exactly.
you know,
Yes.
when you scrape off the bumper stickers and stop buying the bullshit, then you're ready to move on to this part where we are now. You
Yes.
get to start thinking about, okay, what's going to be the theme of my next chapter? Where am I moving? What vibration do I want to hold for myself so
Hmm.
that the universe can bring these things to me?
Right. Right. Absolutely. That is your responsibility. And ultimately, and you can take it or not. I mean, the truth is that, you're not required to. It's an opportunity that's always there for us. And it's the kind of opportunity that, it's an incredible opportunity beyond our wildest imaginations. And we have to be willing to commit to ourselves in the midst of a world that, a lot of people will dismiss it as lunacy, that you can create a different reality for yourselves or a different experience for yourselves, right? Because they'll be like, well, you're going to go to take what education and you're going to study where and you're going to get what new certification and that's going to take you this long and it's going to cost this amount of money because we've been trained to think in a very linear, limited way,
Absolutely.
as if we don't have the whole, power of the universe, which no one understands. Right? I mean, it's beyond our comprehension. What we can learn, Einstein said to groups of, you know, uh, elementary school kids when they said, "What's the one thing we can do?" He said, "Develop your imagination."
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
Because our imagination plays a huge role in determining our life path, our experiences, how we're going to feel as we go through that, the thoughts that we're going to be having. So if we're always looking at our past and drawing conclusions about ourselves and about what's possible based on that, in what we're using our imagination for is imagining more of what we didn't like.
Mhm.
So that's a way to anchor this next part is that, just look at these four zones. And, your souls really appreciate symbols. It operates in a very symbolic way. So, when you look at those, it's not too hard probably for most of us to decide which quadrant we want to be in generally. And so that narrows down your theme,
Mhm.
right? So it could be anything. And it's like, well, actually, I'd like it to be in this area.
Yeah. And I just want to zone 4. In zone 4, we start to understand that, everybody says we're all connected, we're all one, we're all blah 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 blah, and it's all, to me, it's all just lip service until you really understand that there is no division in zone 4. There
Right.
isn't them versus us. There isn't white versus black, as in, the white hats and the black hats, and there aren't two sides of politics. There aren't, everybody's playing their role in zone 4. Everybody. No matter what that looks like. Everybody's playing their role, their part in the divine plan.
Hmm.
There is a divine plan that we are not aware of the intricacies of this divine plan.
Right.
We show up and we play our part. And Kris and I are pretty clear that our purpose is to bring more light to the world and to help people connect with their higher selves and live their truth, live their purpose, live in joy, love, and truth.
Hmm.
And that's why we do the show. That's why, she created Masterful U. That's why we do the work that we do. And in zone 4, we understand that we're doing our work as everybody else is doing theirs, no matter what that looks like. We have no judgment,
Hmm.
because it's that understanding that they're taking care of their job while we're over here taking care of ours. And we are all one, we are all connected.
Right.
And
Right.
I know things are crazy in the world, things are crumbling. Keep in mind that, old systems have to crumble in order for new ones to be established.
Mhm.
And those that are playing their part in the crumbling of these systems, they're playing their part. So focus on love, focus on joy, focus on what you want. You have to bring it to yourself before you can bring it to your community, before you can bring it to your family, community, the
Mhm.
world.
Yeah,
So this is
absolutely.
why we're talking about when choosing your theme, this is about what you want for you because it has to be yours first.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of like we're trying to figure out, we're asking our hearts to tell us, to inform us, what kind of bird am I? Or what kind of animal am I? Right. So it's like all of us have a role to play, a type, we're a particular instrument in the choir. I mean, there are a million unlimited metaphors that we could use. And we're really trying to tune in there and say, what is mine? What is natural for me? And in order to get what is natural for me, we have to get rid of all of the limits that said we had to be like everybody else because imagine a world in which there's like water and no earth, or there's, earth with no trees, or there are birds and no worms. I mean, it's like all of the things have to be here playing their part in order for there to be something magnificent. And so, how do we know? Like, am I a bird? Am I a tree? Like just playing along with that idea of I'm here for a reason to play a role, but there are others like me, right? And I can collaborate with them. And then I can also collaborate with people who are different and I can learn from them. We can learn from one another. So understanding that variety is the spice of life, we've all been kind of conditioned to want to, choose a kind of made up group, man-made group, and then, slap that label on ourselves and then try to hide in that group. Like, yeah, I'm just like everybody else in this group or these groups. Um, and that just frankly goes against our nature. You don't see the trees out here having an identity crisis or the birds. And I know how silly that sounds, but they're really plugged into their intuition and their inspiration. I mean, you notice that when the fall comes, the geese are like, we're heading south.
Mhm.
It's not cold here yet. But over generations, that ancestral wisdom has been passed down to them. This is how you survive. This is how you thrive in this world. The geese could live here. They just know it stinks. So they pack up their little bags and they fly together, and they do it in a way that works for the whole and the individual. And so when I look at that, or I look at a herd of animals on the savannah and the way they put the young on the inside, and they work for the group, because what's good for the individual is good for the group and vice versa. And I'm not talking about, governance. I'm talking about recognizing that we're in this together. And that if we set each of us up to do it on our own, that it weakens the group. That
Mhm.
competing with one another weakens all of us.
Yes, I have some pretty strong feelings about that whole, you know, division and thinking that we are here to do it alone. We've been, that's you made a comment before about self-help. Self-help puts in your head that you should be able to do everything on your own.
Right.
We're not meant to do this work on our own.
No.
No.
We are not. In fact, if you think about a life, just think about your life and your daily things that you have to do, dishwasher, laundry, or doing the dishes. You might have kids to feed, errands to run, pets to walk, a job. And that's like before you even do your job, beds to make, floors to vacuum. Really, it's like Cinderella had it good. You know, I'm serious. Cinder Cinderella was like on holiday. to do the life that she did, because all of us do that around our full-time jobs that we're trying to do so that we can afford to pay for the roof over our heads and the food that we have to go buy and then cook and clean up after,
And the
right?
vacuum. And
And
the,
the vet. Yes, the whole thing. It's really, we've devolved into a society where, a lot of us we have this idea that this is what we need. And yet, Judy and I spend all of our time helping people to recover from having what they needed. So that kind of puts us in a different position of, we have a different perspective. Like, okay, we need to find easier ways. We need to find what works
Mhm.
for each of us. And there's no one answer. But I can tell you what doesn't work is trying to do it all yourself until your body, frankly, one day just pulls the emergency brake and is like, I'm not doing this anymore. You can't make me.
Yeah.
And you wind up with, oh, my aching back, or oh, my ankle gave out, or, whatever it is. I got some terrible disease, whatever it is, because your body's just like, I'm not doing this. There's no point in it.
Yeah.
And while we're trying to do it all, do the impossible, usually the nice thing is we're sitting there beating ourselves up for not being able to do the impossible well enough.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. So we gotta like
Yeah. It's like I'm seeing somebody clear the table. Just swipe that table clean. And start thinking about what there's a difference between what you want and what you need.
Mhm.
Start with what you need. You know, take what works from doing our inventory that we did a couple shows ago. We're taking what works into this new chapter. We're going to take what we need and work from there.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, like Kris always says, you can't build a foundation on sand.
Mm-mm.
It has to be solid, you know.
Yeah.
And remember, the pain of the past doesn't have to be carried into this new chapter with you.
No, but what did we talk about yesterday? Actually, the the pain actually can become the fuel. That pain has incredible value in it, because the fact that you give yourself permission to move away from the pain, to leave it behind, to no longer identify with it. Instead of looking at the pain and saying, "Oh, I always get abandoned. Ouch, ouch, ouch." We can say, "Yeah, in the old chapter or the old part of my book, that happened to me, and what I learned from that is that feels pretty awful.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to build a life with people who have integrity, where there's loyalty, where there's mutual care." Right? I found out those things were important to me. How do I know? Because I suffered from not having it. That's how we learn. And so we can take that pain, just like the fossils of the past that become the gasoline that we put in our car, right? We can take our own fossils, our own pain, and we can transmute them into the fuel that drives us forward. Because you know what? I'm on a mission to make sure that people don't have to suffer from fill in the blank the way I did, or alone thinking they're the problem, right? I don't know that we're going to get rid of suffering, or it's not even really kind of the goal, because, when we're suffering, it's really the universe or infinite intelligence telling us, like, hot stove, warning, hot stove. Don't put your hand on that. What we are going to learn, though, is not to identify with it. Like,
Mhm.
imagine walking up to a hot stove, putting your hand on it, and then going, "Oh my God, that stove burned me. What does it have against me? Oh my God, I wonder if every stove's going to burn me. Like, I wonder if refrigerators will burn me too." Right? And you start having this whole story about the stove doing what stoves do, being about you, because there's something wrong with you, or it has it in for you. Then you
Yeah.
go through your life, and every time you see a stove, you turn it on, you put your hand on, damn, that one did it too. See, I can't catch a break.
Why does it
Right?
hate me? Every stove hates me. Every stove hates me.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's making fun. Um, but it's not different when we're with a person who can't be respectful, for example. and they treat us with disrespect or they're dismissive. And we look at that and we say, my God, why would that person do that to me? And then we start looking, we decide that this is something that's going to happen to us. And we start looking for other people who would do that to us, trying to avoid them. But when you're focusing on a certain type of person, it doesn't matter whether you want it or don't want it, you're attracting it.
Mhm.
Right? So when you get dismissed by somebody, or when you have an experience with somebody and you're like, wow, that feels terrible, just stop and say, thank you for that lesson. Now I know that when I'm with somebody that gives me this feeling, that's not my person. I don't choose that.
Mhm. Yeah. Trust how you paint, how you feel. Trust
Yeah.
that intuition, trust that gut feeling. And, there your pain is always trying to tell you something. So
Hmm.
look for the lesson. And that
Yeah,
lesson is what you carry forward.
that's right. That's right. It with a full heart of like, look how wise I'm getting.
Hmm.
Right.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
three words.
I
Sorry.
think you said yesterday, because I wrote it down, transform your pain to passion, and your passion becomes your purpose.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Yeah, your purpose is important. We talked about this last week, but having purpose is important because, probably getting the dust bunnies out of your house doesn't fulfill you, right? I mean, it might, like you might have a deep sense of satisfaction. Well, let's talk about the difference between satisfaction and fulfillment. You
Hmm.
might be satisfied because you're like, good, I've checked off on my list and I do love a list and I love to make check marks, right? So I'm not teasing anybody about this.
She will
Um,
add things that she's already done to her list so that she can put a check next to
it's
it.
absolutely true. Yes. It's very satisfying but it's not fulfilling, right? So, getting up in the morning when I'm, maybe my energy's a little bit off or whatever, if my first thought is, oh, good, I get to go do my list, that's probably not going to fulfill me and energize me. Whereas I think, okay, let's find out what's on tap for today on this journey to, bring more love and joy to the world. That gets me out of bed.
Hmm.
That's fulfillment, right? What am I doing? I'm doing whatever I can to help people to discover how amazing they are and then to live that truth, to express it. That's fulfillment. See, that's not dust bunnies. And I do have a dust bunny or two probably, but I'm not going to go looking for
I don't need to look.
them. Yeah. And I got 3 words cuz I actually noticed that we're in the last little segment of the show now.
Ooh,
Um
that's a first.
I know, because usually I'm just shocked that it's been more than 10 minutes. Um, yeah, but picking 3 words that you wanna live with in alignment with can be really helpful, right? Like, for me, I want joy, collaboration, and love, right? So those are words that can be my guiding light. So I know I'm wanting the 3rd and the 4th um, quadrants, right, or zones. I
Hmm.
know want to live there. It's where I spend most of my time now. Worked really hard to get there. Uh, and I know that I know when I'm making a decision, because I have my 3 words, I can ask myself when I'm standing at a decision point, when I think about myself in this decision point going to the right, does that feel like love? Does that feel like joy? Does that feel like connection or collaboration? Right? And if the answer is yes, it feels like those 3 things. And I'm like, well, then that's clearly for me.
Hmm.
And if I think about it and I either say I'm not sure or I have to talk myself into it because I want it to be, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So if I'm not sure, I wait until I am
Hmm.
because I have my words.
Yeah.
Right? I couldn't do that in the past because I wasn't clear about which direction my compass was pointed. So having those words is like, I'm clear. this is what this chapter is going to be about. Joy, which by the way is, to me, it's the holy grail. Holding the joy vibration in our day-to-day living, having joy, experiencing joy when you're in your day-to-day life, when you're eating your breakfast, when you're, brushing your daughter's hair. I mean, whatever those things are, being present for the joy that's in our moments, that feels really powerful to me. And
Absolutely.
so it's not really about having like big joys, it's about living joy. And when I think about my experience doing something, make a decision about doing something, um, you know, is that going to bring me more? Is that going to allow me to be present to the joy that's already here and this additional joy? Because I don't want to be going for the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence until I've really opened up, and gotten the pleasure out of what's here.
Well, all right then. Yeah, my words, and it's funny because I have four: peace, love, joy, and truth.
Hmm.
Peace, love, joy, and truth. That's the vibration I want to carry. That's the
Hmm.
vibration I am carrying. That is the
Yeah.
vibration that I shall attract.
Mhm. Yes.
All that is for my highest and greatest good shall come
Yeah.
to me in peace, love, joy, and truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And those words, like all of these words that were, tossing out there, they're high vibration words. You can feel that, right? So in order to have joy, for example, you have to have kindness and respect.
Yes.
No kindness and respect, no truth, no
Mm-mm.
joy, right?
Mm-mm.
Those are kind of they're foundational words. They do kind of all go together. And if we focus on the ones that are the most important to us at the moment, then it will help us to know, if you're looking do an inventory of your life and you've got, situations, relationships, people that you work with or who work for you, or, whatever these things are, and you want to know, is this serving me? Because as your energy raises, your vibration rises. Either people are going to rise with you or they're going to start holding you back.
Well, if you allow them to hold you back, they will either rise with you or they will fall away.
Yes. Yes. And if they do not fall away, right?
Yeah.
Which sometimes, I mean, sometimes
Yes, it
it can take quite a while before that actually happens. And so it does, you know, it's important to realize that we have to be responsible for the things that we want. And then if the people around us don't want the same things and they tell us they don't want the same things, that's what I'm trying to get at.
mhm.
Sometimes, the inspiration was kind of taking me the long road, but um, I was talking to somebody who has employees. They have incredible turnover in their office. And she was saying, it's just awful because we're always training people and, da 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 da. Um, and so when those people come in, so she's saying, this is what I envision. So one thing you might do, for example, and she's got a very high vibration vision, but not so many of the people who would do the jobs that she's listing would likely already be in that high vibration. And so, how do you find people who want that high vibration when they don't even know that it's possible to come into your establishment? And we were talking, actually, they're talking about taking our class now on your experience for their employees, because in order for them to be able to stay in this high vibration place, they're going to have to be able to connect with their inner voice, with their own intuition, and they're going to have to want that high vibration experience, which can be pretty different from maybe what they're experiencing at home or what they've been experiencing their whole lives.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm just being reminded to share with people that, and as your vibration rises and you're shining more and more light into the world, you're showing up differently than what people are used to. So you remain kind and respectful to yourself, and you remain kind and respectful to those that, are around you and love you. And just breathe and know that your loved ones will have to adjust to your light as well.
Hmm.
Okay. And it's going to require some patience, and it's going to require, it's going to require
Some
some patience.
patience.
And, and having the knowledge, knowing that, okay, they're adjusting to the new vibration of me, the new light of me. When you show up differently, it invites them to do the same, but there's a little adjustment period that goes on because you're doing all the inner work. They don't see all that. And then here you are, and they're like, what the hell is going on?
Hmm. Yeah. And they will tend to want to put you back in your box because that's where they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And because our healing doesn't happen like this, it's tricky.
Mhm.
That part can be tricky because if you're like bringing up something about having been dismissed as a child for being female, for example, right? And then a male in your family is reacting to you being a little more you and a little more comfortable in your skin, and they dismiss you in some way to try to get you back into your box, that sets off quite a bomb inside of you. Right?
Which is an indication that there's something to heal there.
There's something to heal, and your first reaction might be to want to like, that person did this to me.
Uh-huh.
And so while we're going through that healing, it's so important to stay present to the fact that we all, 100% of us are reacting to processing the energies that are around us and in us that we can't see
Yeah.
and that we're not aware of, very often. And so we really don't know why the other person is doing what they're doing. But when we're on a healing journey, we often find out it's because they were helping us to bring what it is that we're trying to pull up, to bring into our awareness. They were helping us to do that, even though we want to smack them.
Exactly. Gratitude is not the first thing that comes to mind.
It is not. It is not. And so I laugh when Judy said patience, because it's like, yeah, it takes like almost sainthood, I think. Um, and
It takes
yet,
grace, allowing yourself grace, and then in giving yourself grace, it gives them grace.
it does. And ultimately, that's what opens the door to the fourth zone.
Yeah. That's why for me, peace is so important, because peace is that pause.
Yeah.
Peace makes me pause. It brings me present and allows all the other chatter to
Right.
stop. So Cece is letting us know that we need to wrap it up.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us. And if you feel so guided, we'd love to know what your 3 words are, or 4 words are, what you're choosing for your theme for your next chapter. You can
Yeah.
find us at www.masterfulu.com. That's www.masterfulu.com.
Hmm.
There are 3 levels of engagement. You can watch our show every week, attend workshops, or our 12-week programs.
Hmm.
And I think that's it.
I think that is too. That is too.
Our
Yeah.
transmission is complete.
Indeed, it is. Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Thanks,
Judy.
everybody.